The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
Welcome to another edition of the Alpha Sessions. My name is Ron Laver, and today we have country artist Tara Henton. She's originally from Canada, a town called Kenora in
Correct.
Ontario, but she's now living in the UK. I imagine Northwest Ontario is remote.
Rather, yeah. It's beautiful country. Quite remote, more trees than people. But if I'm being really honest, I like it that way most of the time. So, yeah, it was an isolated place to grow up, but it was also a lovely place to grow up. Just one of those places where everybody just knows everybody, and just a really close knit community.
My first question usually is, how did you get interested in country music? But I guess living in North America, it was probably a little bit more accessible for you than it would be for the average Brit in those days.
Yeah, I mean, like I've got no basis of comparison, but yeah, certainly I remember country music very much being in the house growing up. I mean, lots of different types of music. My mum wasn't really big into country. She was, other genres, but it was my dad really that was like my first kind of source of understanding a bit about the genre. Remember listening to a lot of classic country growing up with him.
When did you start performing, I guess? When did you start thinking, well, I like singing, playing? How did all that start?
My first performances would have been, I started music lessons quite young, so I did like recitals and talent shows and concerts and things like that. I think I enjoyed the singing side of it a little bit more than the piano. I always remember getting really nerve-wracked having to play, especially classical piano. It always filled me with trepidation. But singing, I don't know. I always felt like there was less of a barrier because there was less that could go wrong. It was me, it just kind of came out the way it sounded. But piano, there was always this, if you hit the wrong keys at the wrong time, everything's going to... I had kind of an interesting relationship with country because, very young, like 3, 4, 5 years old, I have memories of listening to country with my dad, and it was cool because it was what my dad was listening to. And then I think I kind of got into a point where maybe kind of later in primary school, like maybe grade 4, 5, 6, where, I had a bit of spending money and I was buying cassette tapes and I was listening to Madonna and what else was going on at that time period. And I kind of veered away from it a little bit because I discovered this music that Dad had never let me listen to. There was a little bit of that's Dad's music. This is what I want to do. And I think that continued pretty much into high school. And I think 90s country was really what got me back. I think that was kind of, rather than it being something that I got exposed to through someone else, I started really digging into it myself. So...
Interesting you say that, because I sort of remember the 90s over here for country music of being a bit of a resurgence. And,
very much.
Coming into the fore a bit more. People like Garth Brooks performing and doing the sort of stage show that you expect a rock band to do.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing for me is, mixtapes were a big thing back then, right? So I was forever making mixtapes. And, you had one that you brought with you when you went to a pit party and one that you brought with you when you did this. But Garth Brooks was one of the few country artists that kind of got in that same mix as all the party songs that people were listening to. So yeah, very, very much. I think Garth Brooks has a lot to answer for me personally, of kind of making me see that country had another side to it, that was kind of where I was at the time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. It sort of turned it in a different direction, doesn't it? And not everyone's happy with the direction it finally went, but it embraces such a wide spectrum now, doesn't it, country?
Absolutely, yeah. But I think that's what's great about it is it's such... I think all genres are quite broad when you really, embrace the genre and you realize, I think all genres exist like that. But I just think with country, the really nice thing is there has been a resurgence recently of kind of more classic, traditional country as well as more the pop. So there really is something for everybody. I don't see how anybody can say that they don't like country music. I think that's more a reflection that they haven't listened to enough of it. There's something for everybody. I think.
No, I totally agree. And it's never, I don't think it's ever had such a broad spectrum as it does now.
But yeah, absolutely.
Taking you back to your earlier days in 1995.
I see where you're going with this.
You were in a talent search show in Nashville.
I was, yes. So that was, it was an interesting experience. So there was an ad in the newspaper that was put, I can't even remember the name of the company that did it now. I think it was Capital Management, and they were very much sort of just like trying to make people think that they were something to do with Capitol Records. It all came out as a little bit of a hoax years later. But anyway, long story short, they put an ad in the paper. I went and auditioned for it. They said, yeah, lovely, you got a lovely voice. We'd like you to go to Nashville and do this televised, it was on like channel 357 on the satellite dish or whatever. It was nothing... certainly wasn't a big time, prime TV thing. But I mean, for a 19-year-old girl, it was an experience. And, just to actually be in Nashville and singing in any capacity is just amazing. And especially at such a young age. And if I remember correctly, I think, now I have to think about this carefully, the guy that was playing piano for me in the studio, I think he played piano for Porter Wagner, but don't quote me on that. But there were definitely... within the house band, they were excellent musicians, and I'd never, that was just amazing, such an amazing experience to stand there and sing with this live band behind me. It was just amazing, yeah.
How did that turn out for you then?
So I sang, the song that I performed was Let's Go to Vegas by Faith Hill. I got some really good feedback on it. And it was basically left with, and this was where the element of not quite being above board came in. It was like, for this amount of money, we'll do this for you, and we'll do that. And I think, kind of the hackles went up a little bit, and certainly from my dad, and he was just like, we're not interested. And he had the pep talk with me and kind of said, look, sweetheart, like you've got enough money saved up for your tuition for university. They're basically asking you for that. So like, it's your choice to make, but what I would strongly suggest you do is to take the safe route and go to university and get yourself an education. And so that's what I did. And yeah, there's always that naggy little kind of thing in your head, like what if, maybe that was a complete hoax, but if I would have stuck around in Nashville, maybe something else would have happened. I'll never know, but I don't regret the path that I've taken, because I'm where I am, and I love my life. So, it clearly wasn't meant to happen at that point.
And you had the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Puts you in good stead anyway, doesn't it?
And I got a tour backstage at the Wild Horse, so that was quite cool.
Fantastic. You've got a new record coming out. It's on pre-save order now. Yeah, you can pre-save on Spotify right now. Yeah. And the release, the final release date is the 17th of September. The track is called Now That You're Gone. Before we hear it, why don't you tell us something about how it came about and the story behind the lyrics? So it was inspired initially. I was doing an online songwriting masterclass with Mary Gaucher and Gretchen Peters back in February. Two of my favorite songwriters. Gretchen has a real special place in my heart, especially. I do like the way you just threw that in, Yeah, just... Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know Mary as well. I got to know her a bit just over the masterclass, but I mean, Gretchen, I've had the pleasure of meeting several times. So and I've spent some time with her. So any opportunity I get to learn from her is fantastic. Anyway, they had given a writing prompt as part of this masterclass, which was to write either a love song or a breakup song from the perspective of the other, like still in first person, but just not telling your story, trying to tell someone else's story. And actually it's quite hard, especially if it's based on a real relationship. I think it's the hardest thing to do is to actually try to see things from their perspective, because you don't really want to, like, you're the one that's right. You're the one that feels vindicated in what happened. And I know the story. So I thought that was an interesting exercise. And that was kind of what prompted it.
So I sort of, started reflecting on a few relationship situations from my past, and just trying to kind of unpick in one particular situation, like why, that occasionally this person kind of tries reaching out, and I'm just like, why can you not let go? Like what is it that you're hanging on to after all this time? And that kind of got the wheel turning, and and then facts kind of evolved into the story that is the song, which is only loosely based in in the inspiration that got it there. But so that's kind of how I got the song.
I've waited too long this time, and I was a fool to ignore the signs. Now you're gone and you said you ain't coming back. Suitcases thrown in your old Cadillac, but I'm the one sitting here with a lot to unpack. Now that you're gone, I wish that I told you the words you needed to hear. Now that you're gone, the reasons why I never did have all disappeared, and everything's become so clear now that you're gone. I should have tried harder to please. Now I'm the one who's left down on my knees, and each day I wake up and I wince at the sun. I can't escape from this damage I've done. Baby, there's nowhere to run now that you're gone. I wish that I told you the words you needed to hear. Now that you're gone, the reasons why I never did have all disappeared, and everything's become so clear now that you're gone. Now you've got a new life and you've left me behind, and I know it's too late for changing your mind. Now that you're gone, I wish that I told you the words you needed to hear. Now that you're gone, the reasons why I never did have all disappeared, and everything's become so clear now that you're gone. I wish that I told you the words you needed to hear. Now that you're gone, the reasons why I never did have all disappeared, and everything's become so clear. I'd give anything to have you back.
The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
Let's go back to your time in Canada before you came to the UK. Where did you attend university?
So I did the Bachelor of Music program at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. And then I went on, after I finished my 4-year degree, I did another year to do my Bachelor of Education.
And as a result of that, you became a full-time music teacher?
Initially, I didn't. It's quite funny. I mean, I did the music thing, then I did my education degree, and then I actually just went into like primary teaching, like just elementary school, for quite a while. I moved to the UK and I did that for about 10 years. And then I sort of, just changed my path slightly and went more into music, like being a music specialist teacher. I found that slightly better. I felt for a very long time that I was quite, I'm sure students I've had would say otherwise, but I felt quite inadequate in a lot of areas, like PE. Me teaching PE lessons is not a fun thing. Unless there's line dancing involved, then it's kind of cool. But that's the other interesting thing coming from Canada. None of the sports were the same. Like I remember moving over and being asked to teach like rounders and netball and all of this. And I'm like, but what is that? I have no education in this. Google, find out what it is. So at least I kind of felt like when I kind of steered my career more into the music, like teaching music in primary schools, that I was a little bit more within my skill set. And also I think so many teachers, especially in primary, they're asked to teach all these subjects if they have no specialized, music is a really daunting subject to teach if you're not musical, or if you don't have that belief in yourself that you can do it. So I kind of felt like I was doing a good service as well. I was doing their music and letting them get on with all the things that they felt confident with. So, yeah.
And presumably, when you took that decision, were you still sort of doing gigs locally, playing?
Interestingly, not so much. No, I mean, what I sort of found, what sort of happened to me was, as I started university, I started focusing more on the music that I felt I was supposed to be doing, and maybe a little bit less on the creative side of making music. I can't really explain why. I mean, I suppose some of it was time management. Some of it was, just my headspace was just, I just got out of the habit of it. And then that sort of continued when I started my working career in my early 20s. I mean, teaching can be an all-consuming career choice. And I think I added a whole other level of difficulty into it, moving and starting it in a new country where nobody understood what I was saying. And there was a whole other element going on there. Long story short, I lost touch with it for a long time. And I think deep down, I always felt like there was something kind of lacking and missing. But it took some things in my life to kind of trigger that, to start realizing that maybe I needed to, I needed to get back to that place again. So
you came to the UK, and we've covered that a little bit. But Lowestoft.
Yes, I spent a year of my life in Lowestoft.
Was that just work?
That was Time Plan. So that was the agency that recruited me. They recruit overseas at that time. I'm sure they still do, to get teachers to come to the UK. And I think Canadian teachers are generally quite sought after, and I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe it's just because we sound cool when we talk. But I think it's got more to do with the school system. I think they have, the UK seems to quite like the way Canadian educational institutions prepare their teachers. So I got recruited. I was going to do supply work out of Ilford, and then in between signing the contract for the supply teaching, I got a phone call with a few schools that had been kind of headhunting for someone to join their staff that had a music background, because they were really looking for that. So that was kind of what landed me in Lowestoft.
So then, have you not been performing at all since you came to the UK?
Yeah, well, I have. So back then, I think I was kind of filling that need by, doing a lot of karaoke and just just kind of having fun with it, not taking anything too seriously and not really doing too much creating, which only takes you so far when you've kind of got that in you. Yeah. But, like I say, it took me a while to kind of get back there. But then, I mean, since about 2010, I've been kind of working, on the country club circuit. So doing more covers and things like that, like as a solo artist, just in different country western clubs and line dance venues and things like that. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and a lot of really lovely people you meet doing that. But again, I still wasn't at the point where I was actually creating anything. So I was getting closer. I was reconnecting with the performance side of it and kind of building up that again. But yeah, it was always this niggling little thing in the back of my head. But you can write your own stuff. Why, I guess I just kind of thought for a long time that nobody would really be that interested in anything that I wrote. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, really. I think there was a lot of niggling self-doubt, and also just especially in the early, like 2000, when I first moved over in 2001, I got the sense quite quickly there wasn't really as big of a country thing going on over here as there was at home. So I don't think I had a lot of like drive to do it, because I think I just kind of absorbed the fact that I could write as much as I wanted, and I didn't really think I'd have an audience for it. Was part of it, I think.
So what was the spark then that you decided, A, to write seriously, and B, get it recorded?
It's been a long road. So what initially kind of sparked? Probably a failing marriage, if I'm being really honest. Like, I'm very happily married at the moment to my second husband. I think there were probably some relationship things there that got me more just journaling. And of course, once you got the words on the page, then the music kind of comes sometimes. And so I felt a need to purge and to, kind of have that release in terms of getting something out. It was a whole series of things. I mean, there was my marriage breaking down, eventually led to divorce. Not long after that, my mum passed away. So that triggered a whole bunch of things for me. And yeah, I think it was just like little things like that along the way that just started making me think, no, like there's this emotional part of you that you're just not acknowledging. You're just putting them in the corner and just ignoring them, and you have to stop doing that. And then in 2015, I went on a songwriting retreat to Tuscany with Gretchen Peters, and that was pretty life-changing, really. It was sort of an early birthday present for myself, because I was coming up to that big 4-0 thing. I just decided, you know what, like I've been kind of messing around with this for a while, and I want to do something to make myself take it seriously and realize that this is a calling that I have, and I need to do something with it. So it was an amazing week. It was just so beautiful. The villa, like just the private villa and gardens, and I mean, just beautiful. I've never taken so many pictures before in my life. It was just absolutely amazing. And daily songwriting sessions with Gretchen, and not only Gretchen, but Barry Walsh was there as well. So I got to know him. I mean, one of the afternoons was amazing. We were like in a vineyard having a wine tasting with Gretchen, and Barry giving us a private concert, just him playing his accordion and as you do. Yeah. And yeah, just so many memories. And I got so much out of the experience. So
it sounds fantastic. And of course, with all that, what you were saying before about all those emotions from different experiences in your life were stacking up and needed to be helped.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And also just addressing, like I had a lot of hang-ups about songwriting, like to the point where like we'd been there for a couple of days, and like every person on the retreat got to have a private one-to-one session with Gretchen at some point in the week. And we were told from the get-go sort of when our sessions were. And I felt that this was like looming, and I felt so guilty because I just had not managed to get a song out. I had such a block those days when I would write. And I'm sure I'm not the only songwriter who's ever felt that, but it was quite debilitating. Like I think I had so much negative self-talk going that I'd convinced myself that I couldn't write, like I couldn't actually get a song out. And there was a lady there named Janie Barnett, and she's actually a professor at Berkeley, which I only realized afterwards. But if you're not familiar with her, look her up. She's fantastic. She's a very, very talented songwriter, musician in her own right, and a professor. So, but I think she saw something in me. Like I think she got a sense that I had a song in me, and I think it was like the day of my one-to-one with Gretchen, and I was just like a deer in headlights. Like I've got a one-to-one with her and I haven't got a song. Like I'm going to the altar and I've got nothing to kind of show. And she goes, right, after this session's done, you and I are gonna you're gonna write a song. I'm not gonna write it with you. I'm just gonna be there. I'm gonna help you through it. And lo and behold, she did. She was so good. And she didn't co-write it. She pulled it out of me. It was like a tooth extraction, but she did it. Yeah. And it was just this song about, she said to me, she says, how does it feel? And I said, it feels like I'm 6 years old and I'm standing on the edge of the swimming pool and the teacher's getting ready to push me in. Because that happened to me. That actually happened to me. And for a long time, I had a real hang up about like jumping into pools and things like that. But I said, that's what I feel like. I said, I feel like I know I need to do it, but I just can't make myself do it. And she goes, that's your song. And that was completely like just the fact that you could actually just write a song about where you were at rather than trying to write a song that you thought somebody wanted to hear. That was quite like a moment for me where I just thought, okay, we're going to write a swimming song, and ended up being called Float Away. I've never released it. I've never done anything with it other than just a really rough demo. But it was a song that had to come out. Mm. And she found a way to tap into it and help me to write it. And I remember Gretchen being blown away because Gretchen is the first one to say she's a very slow writer. She says normally her process is like very long, and she says, I don't make a brilliant co-writer because I often have naps in the middle of sessions, which doesn't tend to bode all that well when your co-writer's sitting there going, when's she going to wake up? But anyway, when I showed up that afternoon and I said, well, here's a song I wrote earlier today. And she goes, what, like a whole song? I'm like, well, yeah, it's got a verse and a chorus and a second verse and a chorus. I probably got a little bit more work to do. She goes, oh my God, I want to hear it, And I got some good feedback from her on it. So,
oh, wow.
So that to kind of get over that fear that I had in such a positive way, in such a beautiful place with the most amazing songwriter kind of giving you a stamp of approval for what you'd managed to create was huge for me, was huge. I don't know how else to explain it, really.
She's such an iconic figure and such a great songwriter. I can imagine what that would have meant to you. But it's interesting you said there about, you realised you could write a song from within rather than write a song about what you thought people wanted to hear about.
Yeah, and I do think there was a lot of that going on before. As I always sort of felt like I felt like I was plugging gaps of like, what do people want to listen to rather than what do I want to say? And it had taken me into my 30s to realize that was the point of songwriting, or at least to be able to kind of have that outward realization that it was okay to write something, even if I didn't think there was an audience for it necessarily.
And I think those songs that come from the heart like that, come from within, make the best songs. When you talk to people and you read about songwriters and what the thing was that sparked that. It's those ones that are the classics that have really, then they hit the reader right there, the listener right there as well, don't they? If they hit you there, they're much more chance of hitting the listener, and to me that's good music.
Yeah, no, it's so true, so true. Yeah, like I said, I've been on a very long journey, and I think one of the good things about coming to this point in my kind of career at this point of my life is looking back, I've got an awful lot of stuff to write about, which is great. Like I have no shortage of material now that I've got like this new kind of way of, it's brilliant. You just kind of think,
we'll all be really happy to hear it. And talking of which, you've done another couple of tracks for us. So can we, one that was a bit more up-tempo than the last one, Fishing for Your Love.
So that was, I can't take an awful lot of credit for that one. I mean, I'm down as a co-writer on it, but only just barely. I had more of a kicking it in the driveway role in that song. It was primarily written by a good friend of mine named Kelly Williams, who lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And I mean, she's a tremendous songwriter. Please look her up online, Kelly Williams Music. She's just released a debut single last month, and I think she's got another one coming out here it'll probably be out before this airs, so she'll have a couple of songs out. Anyway, she'd written the song, and she just wanted a bit of advice on it, of what I thought of it. And the minute she started playing it, it was just one of those songs that just grabbed me. I mean, I grew up fishing, so any song about fishing is a good thing in my books. But there was just something about it that was just so sincere, slightly comical, because I do have a little side of me. I like kind of tongue-in-cheek lyrics and things like that. They do make me laugh. I loved the way that she worked so many fishing words and puns into the story of what was happening. I just thought it was really cleverly written. And she came to me and just kind of said, I've had some feedback. I've submitted it for some feedback, and they've said that they think the melody needs to lift in a few places, like the chorus and maybe the middle eight. And so she tasked me with that. And that was kind of my role with the song. I just, did a little bit of DIY on the melody in a few places. So she's got me down as a co-writer, but I take virtually no credit for it. So, but I love the song, and she's going to let me record it. It's going to be my third single, probably either late this year, possibly more like early next year. So.
Sitting on a moonlit riverbank, I give you a smile, but your expression's blank, darling. Can't you take a hint? I fixed my hair and put some makeup on. I wore perfume, but not too strong. Doing everything to lure you in. Are you hooked on me like I'm hooked on you? I'm waiting around like a lovesick fool. I'll stay right here as long as I need to. Fishing for your love. Now mama says there's a lot of fish in the sea, but something about you feels right to me. I'm angling to be more than your friend. I throw out a line into the dark, try to start a fire with a little spark, hoping that I might catch a kiss. Are you hooked on me like I'm hooked on you? I'm waiting around like a lovesick fool. I'll stay right here as long as I need to. Fishing for your love. Fishing for your love. I'm sinking deeper than I can swim. What's it gonna take to pull you in? Are you hooked on me like I'm hooked on you? I'm waiting around like a lovesick fool. I'll stay right here as long as I need to. Well, are you hooked on me like I'm hooked on you? I'm waiting around like a lovesick fool. I'll stay right here as long as I need to. Fishing for your love. Fishing for your love. Fishing for your love. Fishing for your love. Fishing for your love.
The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
You were talking before that about doing co-writing on that last song. Is that something you now do a lot of, or is it just a small part of how you work?
I've been doing a lot more co-writing lately. I don't know. For me, it's probably still 50-50. I do still enjoy writing on my own. But I have a whole new appreciation for co-writing, really, just in the last 6 months or so, 6-8 months. I've started doing a lot more of it. And it's just so... First of all, songwriting can be quite lonely, and it's so lovely to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And, and sometimes you think that a line that you've come up with is absolutely rubbish, and someone else goes, no, that's gold, like that, or it's too cheesy, like, no, it's perfect. So just to have somebody to kind of tell your editor when to shut the heck up, and just like, no, like, that's good what you got, put that in there. I think that to me is the most useful thing about it, is just having, another set of ears, another human being contributing to the process. So actually, in addition to Fishing for Your Love, so how I actually first came to write with Kelly was I'd met her. She was also on the Songwriters Masterclass with Mary and Gretchen. And I'd heard her present a song in there that I was absolutely blown away with. And so I'd kind of made a mental note, like, at some point I want to work with you. Like, you are my kind of people. Like, I'm on the same page as you. I can really feel it's weird how you get a sense from somebody, even just virtually. I think you can sense if someone's going to be a good fit for you sometimes. Anyway, I got to a point with Wild Horse where I needed some help, and I knew she was very good with lyrics, and it was lyrically where I wasn't happy with what I'd come up with. I had the whole song written melodically. It was good. I was happy with all of that. So she came in to do some work on the lyrics with me in the same way that I sort of came in and helped her out with Fishing for Your Love. So she, and again, we, it was a together thing, we bounced ideas off each other, but, I gave her a cut in it and she was like, oh no, it's too much. It's too much. And I said, what you need to understand is that song wouldn't exist. Like, I don't believe in going through a song line by line and going, well, I wrote that and you wrote that and I wrote that, so therefore I should get this cut. And songwriting doesn't work that way. Like, I do know some people who do that. Not personally, but I've heard stories of some songwriters who approach co-writing in that sort of a methodical way. And for me, that's disrespecting the fact that there's an awful lot going on in the room that doesn't end up on the paper. And sometimes you might come up with a line, but you might not come up with that line if it wasn't for something that someone else had said 5 minutes before. So I mean, she's got a 50% cut on the lyric side of the song because I couldn't have done it without her. I'd had that song in my head for so long that I think I'd gotten quite emotionally attached to what was there. And it's really, really hard when there's certain lines and you think that's a good line, and then to kind of realize that it's a good line, but it's not in the right song. There were some fantastic lines that hit the cutting room floor. And I think it's just part of the process. You can't get too emotionally attached to, it's about the song. If there's a line in it, it can be the best line in the world, but if it doesn't serve the song, it doesn't deserve to be there. You just have to just stick it somewhere and think I'll come back to that another time. So Wild Horse was going to be my debut single. It's now going to be my second single. And I have Kelly to thank for that. So
great. Well, we'll listen to that at the end. And but before we let you go, a couple more questions. If you could have a dream gig and have someone collaborating with you to perform on that gig with you, anyone dead or alive, who would you choose and where would you have it?
Oh, no, that's interesting, because when I was asked this question before, the dead and alive bit wasn't in there. So the venue I would love to perform in is not really a big surprise. Grand Ole Opry, hands down. I mean, if I can ever... When I was in Nashville when I was 19, I did go on a tour of the Ryman, which of course was the home of the Grand Ole Opry, and still is occasionally, So, but I mean, I stood in the circle, and I mean, tingles, like literal tingles, and you just like when you actually just appreciate how many people have stood there. If I could ever stand back there and actually be the one singing, that would just be amazing. I'm going to get all emotion in a minute.
So would you like to do that actually in the Ryman then? Or in the new Grand Ole Opry, which of course has that circle cut out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I just, to be honest with you, I'm not in a position to be picky. If I was ever asked, I would go where they wanted me to go. But to me, the Ryman is the mother church, isn't it? I mean, there's just something about that venue that I think that would just be the ultimate. But yeah, I'm never going to turn down the Grand Ole Opry if they ask me to go. I don't care if they're in a cornfield, I'm going, And in terms of, I love Brad Paisley. And I mean, there's a quote from me in an article that, Brad Paisley would be my dream duet partner. Yeah, I would love to get on stage with him just because he's got such I don't know, there's just something about his persona on stage. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but yet he's so accomplished. And I love that about him. And I wouldn't mind co-writing with him either, because he's got some very interesting angles into things that I think some people in country traditionally might not write about. So I love the quirkiness about some of the songs that he writes, as much as some of them that are much more sincere and from a more traditional place. But I have to say, with the dead or alive caveat put on that, and if I could duet with anybody, Merle Haggard, it'd have to be. I love my Merle.
Good choice.
And obviously, that dream is gone now. But I grew up listening to Merle Haggard, and that would just be the ultimate right there. Yeah.
Just out of interest, what's on your iPhone or whatever device you use to listen to music these days?
Oh, goodness. I've got a lot of stuff on there. I've got a lot of the UK artists that I've been listening to a lot lately. And some of them I've only recently discovered in the last few months. But I listen to them for two reasons. One, because I just love so many of the songs. But also, I'm just always conscious. I'm trying to give them some listens to try to help them, to have that support on streaming platforms. But aside from that, I've been getting right back into the Pistol Annies lately. I love the Pistol Annies, and obviously Ashley Monroe's been going through some really challenging health issues lately, so she's been kind of on my mind, and that's just been kind of making me go back and listen to Pistol Annies and some of her solo stuff as well, because I love her as a songwriter, and she has such an angelic voice. But also I've always got Gretchen on there. I've always got Mary Chapin Carpenter on there. Matraca Berg.
Yeah.
I've loved. I mean, I came into Gretchen a bit later. I must admit, I'd loved her songs for years, but I didn't know it. I grew up listening to songs of hers, but at that point, when I was a teenager, I didn't know who wrote Independence Day. I thought it was Martina McBride, So I had that epiphany later in my life that actually I'd been a Gretchen fan for so long, I just didn't know her name. But Mary Chapin Carpenter, I've listened to since, late 80s, early 90s. I just grew up on her stuff. And Matraca Berg, I discovered her kind of mid 90s, and I've always just loved her as a songwriter. And obviously people have recorded so many of her songs as well. But when she sings it, there's something haunting about it.
Yeah.
So they're always there or thereabouts. And then, of course, I get in a silly mood and I'm listening to Fancy Like by Walker Hayes. So, I'm very eclectic. I'll listen to anything, but it depends on my mood, really. Depends what I'm looking for.
You said about listening to the English artists. Do you think we approach it differently?
I don't know. It's apples and oranges in a way. I mean, I think there's a uniqueness to the perspective that comes from a lot of the independent country artists in the UK. I think where it falls down sometimes is where they're trying to sound too, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing worse than like somebody who does not have a North American accent trying to put on a North American accent to sound like, and I'm not saying anybody does it, but I just think, certainly in my years of hearing people sing country, some people think that to sing country, you have to do that, Yeah. I do think my voice does go a little bit like that way when I sing, but I don't do it on purpose. It's just how I've always sang. So I think my UK kind of transient accent kind of swings more back to my birthright. When I sing country, I just start sounding more Canadian somehow sometimes.
That's acceptable.
Yeah. But no, I love the whole scene. I just think there's so much talent, and it's wonderful to see all the UK independent country talent that's out there finally getting some recognition, gaining a little bit of traction. And I mean, like Tennessee Fields, the other month, obviously with all of the COVID issues going on, I mean, that lineup was entirely UK, and pre-pandemic, that wouldn't have happened. Like, it was almost like, in order for you to do a show, you had to have a big Nashville name to bring in the numbers and to make it a legit, like, country festival. So I actually think the pandemic has kind of changed people's mindsets a little bit, because it's made them realize that, yes, there's tremendous talent in Nashville and coming out of the States, but actually we've got some really good stuff here too. And it's not an either or situation, it's both.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, absolutely. What sort of plans have you got for the future? Have you got more music in store for us? Are you going to be gigging?
I do, yes. I do have a gig in Norwich at the beginning of October. I'm open to other gigs. Haven't really got too much going on in the books yet, but it's kind of early days. You know, I think people are still kind of just tentatively kind of seeing how things are going to settle out this autumn. So yeah, I'm taking it as it comes. And I've got my second single coming out in November. I'm going to be starting work on my third single, Fishing for Your Love, you know, probably soon after that, kind of getting it ready for next year. I would like at some point next year, my kind of plan is to work towards an EP. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to, maybe September next year will be kind of somewhere around there. We'll see. Give myself something to work towards. I'm focusing on my songwriting this year. I'm joining, as of the 1st of September, I joined the Songwriting Academy. So I'm going to be doing a lot of writing for briefs, writing to try to pitch music, country and otherwise, building some good contacts within the industry. And really excited about that. And also, I mid-September start as a DJ for Nashville Worldwide. So I'm their first female DJ host on their radio station. So I'm quite looking forward to that as well. I have no idea how that's going to go down, but everyone says I'm good at talking. So hey, as long as I shut up every once in a while and play some music, maybe they won't fire me, eh? So yes, lots going on. Excited about all of it.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and really pleased. New music in the pipeline already, and we'll certainly keep a lookout on your future developments, and and the radio as well. Yes. Try and put that in the diary to remember to tune in.
It'll be on Tuesdays from 12 to 2 UK time.
Right.
So starting kind of somewhere around the 14th, I believe, 14th, if that works out to be a Tuesday. It's the week when my daughter starts school full time. Oh, right. That was the ticket. I'm kind of like, okay, fine, I got a little bit of time now. I can do something else. Yeah. So watch this space.
Thanks very much for talking to us today.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been really good to hear your story and listen to your music. And we're going to go out on the final track, which you've just said is going to be your second single, and it's called Wild Horse. And we'll hopefully catch up with you again soon.
I'd love that, Ron. It's really nice talking with you. Thank you.
And you. Bye now.
Bye.
I have tried to be patient, how I've tried to tame your heart. You pull away every time that I get too close. You fought me from the start. You always take what I can give you, but you don't give me what I need. Now I think I finally learned my lesson, and this time my heart agrees. I've gotta let this wild horse run, let him ride away. I can't rein you in if you don't want to stay. I know it's just your nature, and I can't make you change. So I'm gonna let you ride, wild horse, ride away. Although I stared back at me, all these years I've been chasing an illusion. I was blind, but now I see. part of me will always love you. But this is how our story ends. 'Cause I'm the only one who's broken, and your heart will never bend, never bend. I've gotta let this wild horse run, let it ride away. And I can't rein you in if you don't wanna stay. I know it's just your nature, and I can't make you change, so I'm gonna let you ride. I've gotta let this wild horse run, let him ride away. I can't rein you in if you don't wanna stay. I know it's just your nature, and I can't make you change, so I'm gonna let you ride. Yeah, I'm gonna let you ride. Wild horse, ride away. Ride away.